Going to the Cotton Bowl. Oklahoma squares off against Texas. Vegas has this line 1.5 most places. We know that if John Mateer's playing, it's probably more likely at 5.5. Feels like from the updates we got from Venables that it's not looking likely that he's going to play this week. But who knows, right? Make Texas prepare for as many quarterbacks as possible. Still, I mean, look, I think Arch Manning hasn't been playing great, but I don't think he's been playing necessarily as bad as people think. Texas being favored in this game, CD. I feel like I mean, where are we at with this right now, CD?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got two teams heading in two different directions, right? Oklahoma, a team that we thought had a really tough September, and they did, right? Not only did you have Michigan and Auburn, you also had a random road game at Temple that you were never going to lose, but obviously that weird travel up to Philadelphia, not something you love to see in an out of conference game that you don't really need to, and they handled it well. Now you grinded out a couple wins against Michigan and Auburn, right? Mateer, that loss, that's going to hurt, and that has hurting. Obviously, you have a guy who has experience, a guy who has played in this game. Michael Hawkins played in the same game a year ago, and Texas defense really shut him down. Now I think Oklahoma's offense is a little bit better. I think you've got a couple receivers playing in this game for the Sooners this year that you didn't have last year. You hope to see your running game tick up a little bit. Jay Knott got more involved in the offense, which was great to see. He's going to need to have a big game, or at least someone in that backfield for Oklahoma to have a chance to move the football. But the reality is their defense is good enough to keep them in this football game. It really is. With the way Texas is not running the football, with the way Texas is struggling to consistently put drives together, take care of the football. I mean, Trey Reisner, 8 carries for 11 yards. That dude was slashing people, slashing defenses just a year ago with that very good veteran talented offensive line that Texas had in their semifinal run a year ago. And here we are, and they can't run the football when they need to. And I know you compare it to Ohio State, which is an elite defense, Florida, which has a very good front seven, but that's what you're going to go up against with this Oklahoma team. Can you run the football? Which team can establish that? Because I think neither team loves the way their quarterback's playing right now.
Yeah, and it's weird because Vegas has this, at 1.5, which is assumed that Mateer is playing. So it's okay, the value is that just taking Texas -1.5. But even then, it's hard for me, like you said, to wrap my head around this Texas offense being super successful consistently against this Oklahoma defense, which I get. Auburn's offense isn't the best. Michigan's offense isn't the best relative to some of the other offenses in their respective conferences. But let's not kid around and say that these are bad football teams. They're not bad football teams. Oklahoma just physically dominated them on the defensive side of the football. They look good. Their defensive line looks good. Their secondary is playing well. They're flying to the football. Brent Venables has his hands all over this defense, which has changed it dramatically. Even at 1.5 CD, and without the confidence that John Mateer is playing, I don't know if this is just recency bias or my eyes just playing tricks on me or whatever. I kind of like Oklahoma in this spot here, even at 1.5. Obviously, would never touch this, would never sniff this on the best bets, but I think for the purpose of us picking this, I think I'm gonna go with Oklahoma to cover, and then cover and win, I guess. But at 5.5, it would look a lot better. But we're picking this at 1.5.
So I think in order for Oklahoma to win this football game, especially if Mateer doesn't play, Venables and Ben Arbuckle are going to have generational type coaching, I think, in this game to keep you in this football game. I don't trust Michael Hawkins. I really don't. I've seen him enough. He wasn't super crazy efficient against Kent State. Not that they were open up the playbook for him. They're going to let him do what he can do best, right? We saw Florida a week ago be able to run the football, and they kept Lagway upright and they let the playmakers outside Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, guys like that make plays. That's going to be a similar formula for Oklahoma. But obviously rolling out Hawkins, cut the field in half, making one read, two read throws, and hopefully establishing the run. And maybe here I am like holding on, grasping on to what I thought of Texas coming into the season. I have a hard time seeing how Oklahoma wins this football game without John Mateer. With John Mateer, I'm all on Oklahoma. I think they win, and they probably win by a touchdown and maybe 10 points, because they can move the football, I think, on Texas, and you make up some of that ground there. And I think the theme for this week, we'll see in a couple of games, maybe on my best bets, is like you have to have some kind of resilience in this sport. Texas has to be extremely upset. This has to have been the best week of practice they have had in Austin in a long time, right? That's what I'm banking on. Obviously, you don't need extra motivation to get fired to play Oklahoma if you're Texas, but boy, oh boy, man, do I expect them to come out ready to play. I expect, maybe a reset from Sark and this offense to figure out what's going on, and then giving them defense confidence to play with a lead, and obviously, pin their ears back and go up against Michael Hawkins and whatever Oklahoma tries to throw at them. I like Texas in this spot. We've seen this game go crazy in either direction, no matter who's favored, who's got the better quarterback, who's got the better roster coming into the game. But I like Texas here. Don't love them though, but I like Texas.
How much worse do you think Michael Hawkins has to play? Like, I guess, how much less bad than Arch Manning does Michael Hawkins have to be? Michael Hawkins and co, right? Like whoever's under center on a given drive or for the game, whatever. How much worse do they have to play than Arch Manning to win this game? Or do you think they have to play better than
No,
Arch does?
no. To give Oklahoma a chance, 75%, 70% of what Arch has given Texas.
What if they just win the turnover battle?
Well, we saw last
Then where are
year.
you
Remember
at?
last year? Well, at the beginning, the first quarter
Yeah.
could not have scripted a better defensive turnover start for Oklahoma, and they had 3 points or something ridiculous out of that.
Yeah.
That would be my concern. Is like your defense comes out and punches them in the mouth again. You got R. Mason Thomas, David Stone, who's coming into his own right now. You've got a couple of really good pass rushers there. Obviously, the talent in the back end, and they come out and give you what you need in that first quarter. Like, can you take advantage of that? My trust says no in Hawkins. In Mateer,
Yeah, and
absolutely. But by the way, Texas
yeah,
can beat Mateer. Texas can beat OU,
sure,
Oklahoma, when
100%.
they have Mateer. With Hawkins, I think it's just that much harder for Oklahoma.
I think I have a little more confidence in Hawkins than you do, but I understand anyone who is wanting to bet on Texas. Like, if you want to, you have to get it now because you're not going to see a better line probably than this. Maybe on game day, right? You'll see like people, if John Mateer is reported to play, you'll see like that line move a little bit even further, even though it's assumed that this is the John Mateer line that you're getting. I don't know, man, because I just think in the trenches, this Texas defense still is really good. Okay, clearly not as good as their defense was last year. And actually, I'll play a little bit devil's advocate on your side. The Florida game, like aside from a couple explosive plays, like yeah, there was Florida was physically able to run the football and move the chains. But that was like what we were expecting that offensive line to be like all season. It caught us by surprise because we hadn't seen that from Florida's offensive line in the running game and DJ Lagway. Like that was what we expected on the season. Texas defense, other than that, still has looked really good. Obviously, against the inferior competition, they've looked great. Against Ohio State, which by the way, Julian saying it feels like no one's really talking about him, but he's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, if not the country right now. That wide receiver room is still nuts. Now, granted, Bo Jackson wasn't a feature running back in that offense at that point, but yeah, that Ohio State offense shutting them down to only 14 points and their game-winning, their difference-making touchdown being on like a 50-yard bomb to Carnell Tate. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe this Texas defense is better than what people are projecting it to be right now. I still am in the camp that I don't trust Arch Manning. I think turnovers are a serious issue, and I think that could be an issue with Michael Hawkins. And like you said, obviously turnover doesn't necessarily guarantee a win, but I think that this Oklahoma offense with Ben Arbuckle, okay, versus last year, I think even with the deficit at quarterback, I still think that Oklahoma can win this football game. So I'll roll with them. And of course, would love to take Oklahoma if John Mateer's playing, just like you.